In this section, we're going to build what you see on the screen right there. Well, it doesn't look very exciting, but there's a lot going on under the hood. Basically, this section is I wanted to get a bunch of mundane details out of the way and stub in our components. What's a component? Well, I'll talk about that here in a minute. But I wanted to go ahead and create a sort of skeleton of our application that will allow us to kind of focus just on the implementation details of each individual component, each individual aspect to this application. So yeah, there's actually a bit of code involved. We also put together a nice little sort of wrapper around Socket.io using reactive extensions that I think is really cool. I hope you guys do too. And then we stub out our components and all that fun stuff, and we even stub out the server so that all we have left now is a tiny little bit of infrastructure code, but mostly just the stuff that we're going to care about. So let's take a step back and actually talk about the architecture of this application, because I think that's the main reason why this thing exists. Well, also the build tools, but we already covered those. So let's talk about the architecture. This architecture kind of looks like this, and it's something that is a very common, very modern sort of architecture that you'll see no matter what framework or library you use. It was really popularized with React, the React framework, but it turns out we've been doing this sort of thing for ages, but it's kind of received a lot of attention lately, and it's a very good way to organize things. So what exactly are you looking at right now? Well, I've delineated things into 4 columns, because there's 4 sort of layers to our entire application. We have our server, we have our stores, or if you want to call it a model, if you're more familiar with that term from other object-oriented patterns. And then we have our components, and then we have our document object model, or rather our web page. So let's talk about components for a second. Components, I already said that word before, so I kind of have to define it now. A component is a sort of piece of functionality, piece of dumb functionality that will orchestrate changes to the document object model. And when I say dumb, I don't mean like in a derogatory sense. I just mean actually stupid. They aren't responsible for any of the aspects of our business logic. Components are the V in MVC, basically, but it's a different name for it, a more modern name, and I think more applicable to that name, and you'll see the term component thrown around quite a bit. I mean, you could say that this looks essentially like an MVC pattern. We have our model, which is the stores, which is controlled by our server. We have our V, which is our components, but we don't really have a C. There's no real big orchestrator between the model and the view in this particular case. So what we instead have is we sort of have this unidirectional data flow where data starts off in the server somewhere. Something happens. The chat message was received, a video was added, blah, blah, blah. And then over Socket.io, it tells one of the stores about it. So the stores are the things that are going to be listening in to the server. And they take that event that happened from the server and they turn it into an observable. They also might do other things. They might, the model isn't necessarily entirely dictated by the server. Other things within the stores might add additional information to the data or calculate certain things in the data or whatever. We'll see examples of that where the stores will actually add additional data to what we receive from the server. And then the stores will publish those changes as state changes, as whatever is causing the store to change, which is usually but not always going to be the server. As that state changes, it'll publish those changes to the components, and all the components care about is taking in those state changes, taking in those events from reactive extensions, and applying whatever those events represent to the DOM as mutations through, for example, jQuery in this example. So this is kind of how these 3 libraries sort of, you can kind of see how they sort of stack on each other. Socket.io handles server-to-client communication. Reactive Extensions will handle our model to view or our store to component communication. And then jQuery will handle our DOM manipulations. So there's a unidirectional data flow. Components they don't know really how to change state. They can't change state. They can't actually do anything. But what they can do is they can tell the store to do something. Now, in the architecture we're going to build, the components will have actual references to the stores directly and be able to invoke methods on them. In these sort of architectures, sometimes that's not the case. Some people prefer to have the components simply dispatch a action, what's called an action, on an event bus. So you might have seen that in more fluxy sort of architectures, if you're familiar with the Facebook's whole Flux architecture. This architecture draws heavily from that, but I think in this particular scenario, it works a lot better. So basically, we saw how an event all the way gets turned into a DOM manipulation. However, we also need to respond to user input, because an application that doesn't respond to user input isn't that interesting. So the other way around is if a DOM event comes in and the component is listening to it, then it'll invoke a store method, some sort of method on the store that tells the store to perform an action. The store will most often, but not always, send the server the action to do, and then the server will do it. But that will be the end of that flow. Now, those actions will most likely cause another event to come out, but that will begin that flow. So I hope the architecture is very clear. We only want a single source of truth for all of our stores, and the stores are the ones that can manipulate that data that the components can't. So some things the components will manipulate directly. For example, showing or hiding a DOM element for showing the context menu for the playlist, but I don't consider that to be a model concern. Some people will consider that to be a model concern, and there is another architectural difference there. But the point is this is the terminology that I'm using, and this is kind of the high-level bird's-eye view of how data flows in and how data flows out. So in this section, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a Reactive Extensions bridge on Socket.io, allowing the stores to more easily communicate with the server, rather. And we're also going to be stubbing out all of our components. So we're going to write out all of our components, connect them to each other, put in some basic HTML, whatever, all that fun stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started and start putting together our basic layout for our application, our basic styling and basic elements and all that fun stuff. So we'll see you guys there.